Welcome back to another episode of the Hotel Fit Show. I'm Leo Amarim, and I'm here to help you improve your physical and mental health around your crazy hospitality schedule. We have a very special guest joining us today. It's going to be really exciting. His name is Matthew McKinley. He's a head chef, a hospitality consultant, and a fitness enthusiast. Himself went through a personal health transformation, but just before he was struggling with some of the things that you guys struggle with. Basically, he was struggling managing his time. He was consuming alcohol regularly. He had an unhealthy diet. And in general, he was dedicating a lot of time to his career and not putting a lot of time into his well-being and health. And so I thought it would be awesome for you guys to hear Matthew's story. He's also going to share some tips and tricks for you guys today and some advice on how you can improve your health too, even around a busy schedule. Matthew, what's up, man?
How's it going?
Great. How are you?
Very well. Very well.
Thank you so much for doing this, man.
Yeah, anytime. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time in coming here and sharing your insights with the guys here in the community. We have plenty of people around here all across hospitality that are struggling with some of the things that you struggled like in the past before you changed your lifestyle and became this fit guy. So I'm sure your advice will be very helpful for these people. So I want to start by playing a quick would you rather game about fitness, hospitality, and life in general. So here's how it works. I'll give you two options and you'll have to pick one. You ready? All right. Powerlifting or bodybuilding?
Bodybuilding.
Awesome. Me too. Although I'm doing some strength training lately. Would you rather work at a pub or a restaurant, and why?
I'm going to say restaurant, although the venue that I run currently has quite a large bar space that people will use independently as a bar, but I'm going to say restaurant. And the reason for that is the focus tends to be more on the food. And I know that's changed quite a bit in hospitality recently. There's some absolutely awesome pubs up and down the country now that are serving some of the best food in the country. So it's probably not as cut and dry as it would have been in the past. But yeah, restaurant.
Okay, interesting choice. Matt, as an Arsenal fan, pick the last team in the world you would never want to lose against.
Yeah, it's just
there's many.
It's just got to be Tottenham. I always get thrown by that question. I grew up in Ireland, so I didn't have the locality kind of passion that people in North London have for the football. And when I was growing up, United were the dominant team in the UK at the time. So Arsenal's fiercest rivalry at that time was United. So I'm always spun by that question.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I had to pick on you, man. Arsenal fans. I don't I don't support any team in particular in the Premier League. I sympathize with Man United because there's some Portuguese players playing in there, and I'm Portuguese. But yeah, I just wanted to to pick you on that. Do you prefer cooking fish or meat dishes?
Fish.
Okay. Would you rather, this is a good one, would you rather look big on a t-shirt while having strength but carrying a little bit of body fat, or looking tiny on a shirt but looking jacked?
It depends what day of the week it is. Right now, I'd rather be a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger.
It's the off season, right?
Well, I think as I get older, I've been through the journey to get to quite low body fat, and the maintenance of that type of physique is all encompassing. It needs to be almost your every thought of the day, and if you want to enjoy other things in your life, sometimes you've got to let the body fat percentage creep up a little bit.
Yeah, Absolutely, man. I totally understand. Yeah, like for me, it's off season now, so I let myself also like gain some strength and try to progress. Yeah, what I usually do is like I do a cut and then stay on maintenance throughout the whole summer, and then go back into strength training. But to be honest, I don't go into like crazy levels of body fat, as you probably were. Like I can see from the photos, you were probably, I don't know, 8-9% for what it seems like.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
around 8-9%.
it's quite difficult to sustain that. All right, last question. Do you think that hospitality professionals will be replaced by artificial intelligence in the next 20 years? Yes
No,
or no? You don't think so?
100% no. And I've, yeah, this has been hotly debated for quite some time now, and I've seen videos of like automatic cooking stations that can like wok fry noodle dishes and different bits and pieces, but there's a level of yeah, I'm not even sure what the word is, but cooking's a tactile environment. You need to be able to see it, you need to be able to hear it, you need to be able to touch it, and for me, there's only so much a computer can do. Like it's very much programming is set up with a yes or no approach to every situation, and very often in cooking, it's not a yes or no situation. So I think we're safe for a few years yet.
Yeah, I think chefs. Yeah, I think like the majority of the kitchen, you're probably safe. But I think like a lot of positions will likely be replaced, like receptionists and like probably waiters. I don't know. Yeah, I see
I
this thing.
I I I probably disagree, and here's why. Um, when I was younger, I worked in hospitality. I rarely went out. I rarely went to decent restaurants. I rarely went to hotels. Um, I would obviously go to like pubs and clubs a bit, but as I've gotten older, I spend a lot more time on the other end of hospitality, going to nice restaurants, going to nice hotels, and 90% of the experience is the people that you meet. It's the guys at the door, it's the people who seat you, it's the sommeliers, the people who take your, like, that's part of the experience. And I'm not sure that can be replaced. Don't get me wrong, like McDonald's are doing it, and Burger King are doing it, and KFC are doing it, but like, are you going to go to a 3-star restaurant and put your order into a computer at the table? Absolutely not. Never. And I can't imagine it will ever be that way.
Yeah, like I get what you're saying. Like the luxury experience, yes, you can't replace that. Like it is a personal touch. But like when it comes to like I don't know, hotel airports, like for example, and like things like the mid-range Hiltons and all of that, like the big franchisings, I think like there's probably going to be some changes. But yeah, in the like in the high-end industry, I think that's probably take some time. But there's also like the generational component, right? Because like in 20 years, like when people are like 14 now, when they grow up, like in 20 years, maybe they will be okay to going to like a luxury like hotel and being like putting the orders through a robot. I don't know.
I hope not, because I'll end up being one of those real old guys that like tells everybody about what it was like back in my day.
Yeah, yeah,
Pesky kids are ruining everything.
yeah, definitely. Let's hope things don't get too technological. All right, let's dive in. Let's talk about interesting fitness stuff for the audience, and just for the audience to kind of know what was your path in hospitality so far. What are your credentials? What are you up to now?
So I'm a head chef of a large branded brasserie in Nottingham. I work for one of the biggest hospitality companies in the UK. They run 2,000 different venues across the country. And how I got there was quite an interesting story. I started out in one of Northern Ireland's best restaurants, working for a guy called Paul Rankin, who at the time was Northern Ireland's first ever Michelin star chef. And I then spent around 8 years in an award-winning fish restaurant, cooking fish for a guy called Andy Ray back in Ireland. And from there, I traveled to Asia, spent a year in Bangkok cooking, and then I ended up in Australia in far north Queensland. And I stayed there for 4 years, running 2 different venues when I was there, before coming back to Ireland. And when I arrived back in Ireland, I took over a boutique hotel just outside the city of Belfast. We had 2 Rosette restaurants, 4 Rosette hotel, and 2017 we won Hotel of the Year while there, and retained our 2 Rosettes. And from there, then I, in a lot of respects, chased the money. I had a decent reputation in the industry, and people would approach me about jobs where I was able to make quite a lot of money, and that's what I've been doing for the last kind of 5 years. I just recently got married 2.5 years ago to one of my kind of childhood friends, and in doing so, I had to take a different approach to how I worked. And after the last lockdown, which I think impacted everybody, after the first lockdown, sorry, which impacted how everybody in hospitality worked, I took a part-time job with a branded restaurant, so that I could have some time with my family and spend some time looking for my own restaurant to open here in Nottingham. And of course, like anything, I went in to do 25 hours a week, and 25 hours a week became 40 hours a week, and then 40 hours a week became 55 hours a week. And at that point, I said to my boss, look, if I'm going to work 55 hours a week, I may as well go somewhere, get a head chef job, get paid. And shortly after that, the organization that owned that restaurant moved me to my own venue in Nottingham. So that's how I ended up in branded. It was essentially the lockdown, and gives me a work-life balance. I only work 45 hours a week, and yeah, and it's actually proven to be quite fruitful for me. So I'm still in the hunt for my own restaurant, and I'm going to find the right spot. That's the plan. But I've cooked on a couple of different continents now, and I've cooked everything from burgers to some of the best scallops that have ever been pulled out of the sea. So I've been very, very lucky in terms of the variety that I've got to enjoy in my career. Got to work with some really talented guys along the way, and do some interesting stages, and yeah, now I'm in the twilight of my career, so to speak. Yeah, I'm happy just to relax a little bit and do a normal week.
That's really awesome, man. Impressive journey so far. Although, like, I was just thinking, like, you are now like kind of chilling a little bit with a 45 hours a week schedule.
Yeah.
But like, as soon as you open your own restaurant, that's gonna be like,
yeah,
100 hours a week.
Yeah, and the plan is when I open my own place, it's going to be really casual, and the focus will be on maintaining a work-life balance. It'll not be about trying to have the best restaurant in the city. It'll not be about trying to win awards. It'll be about producing good food within the confines of having a work-life balance.
That's fair enough. And I think like that perspective of just focusing on serving good food and having like a nice quality restaurant, like in a place where you can be the best restaurant in town.
Possibly. Who knows?
Yeah. Awesome, man. Before you started like living a healthier life, and you were just focusing on your career and basically smashing it out there in the kitchen world, what were you struggling with before you decided to snap? Now I'm just going to live a healthier life now.
So everything is the short answer. And I've had this discussion many times with chefs over the years. You know, does the industry turn us into people with mental health problems and dependencies, or do we arrive in the industry with mental health problems and dependencies, and they get exasperated because of the conditions of the industry, and I've never been able to figure it out. I know that as a young chef, I would drink too much on my days off. I would use a lot of street drugs on my nights off and days off, and oftentimes when I was working as well, to be honest, I would drink more than was sensible, and I never worked out. I didn't eat properly. My diet essentially consisted of like one takeaway meal a day. Probably had at somewhere between 12 o'clock in the evening and 2 in the morning, depending on whether I drank immediately after work or whether I went for food and then went drinking. But it was not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. I had a lot of issues with depression and anxiety that I'm 100% sure were caused by the heavy drinking and the lack of sleep and the bad diet and overworking. So I was probably that typical 22-year-old chef who just burned the candle at both ends and didn't have much regard for what my future would bring.
Why do you think was the major reason why you were like drinking too much and having that kind of life? Was it to escape from stress, or were it just like a group thing, like because everyone else was doing around you?
I think it's a really complex question, and I think everybody in the hospitality industry will be slightly different. But I know for me personally, I came into the industry with a low feeling of self-worth. I didn't really understand who I was as a person, and then I arrived and there's this camaraderie in the kitchen that everybody sticks together. We're all there to help each other. It's like a big dysfunctional family, and no one gets left behind. And of course, the guys further up the kitchen and the older people that you work with in hospitality at that point, they drink heavily and they use drugs and they party a lot to deal with their stresses. So it feels like the most natural thing in the world for somebody just getting into the industry to do what they do, and almost like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If everybody else is going to do it and that's how they deal with the stress, then surely that works, and you follow suit.
Mm-hmm. Was there a breaking point, like a low point in that time, in that period, where you said, okay, like I had enough, like tomorrow I'm gonna start like taking care of myself differently? Or was it like
really,
was there a moment?
There was a lot of those, and probably from maybe the age of 24, 25, I was at that point I was starting to worry about how often I drank, how much I drank, the types of drugs that I was using. Obviously that level of like using alcohol and drugs consistently brings with it financial stresses and other problems. So I think by the age of 26, I knew from a mental point of view I'd had enough, but I didn't quite know what to do to change things, and I kept going for another 3-4 years. Just I knew there was a breaking point there. I went and spent 6 weeks in a rehab when I was 26 to try and kind of sort everything out, and that didn't really work out. So I knew like the path I was following just wasn't for me. I knew how much it was impacting on my mental health, but I didn't know how to turn the corner at that point.
Okay, that's like, yeah, impressive. And that, like, after you went through that rehab, you basically came back to the normal kitchen life and relapsed again to the same thing.
Yeah, just got straight back on it. I think like maybe I spent 6 months where I was kind of just working, going home, going to bed. I think around that point actually, I started doing a little bit of running, because one of my housemates at the time was big into running marathons, and he was like, why don't you come do a few runs with me? And at that point, I got into running a little bit. It was like my first.
You don't start things and not finish them. You don't quit.
Since leaving school.
There's nothing that comes out of
quite
quitting
enjoyed
besides
the
knowing
game
that
of
you
running.
didn't finish.
At
We
that
finish
point,
everything. You start it,
back into
finish it.
full-time
If you're gonna do it,
running went into
do it to try and be the best.
And then,
Not be
like,
better than
how
other
did you,
people,
like,
be the best for you.
went into, like, when did you start like lifting weights and you started doing all of that? Because
So
was that was like what kind of changed your
yeah,
like the whole dynamic of things, right?
I think it was like an all-in-one kind of wake-up call. I think I was 28, 29, and I was struggling at that point to like keep jobs. I was struggling to hold down jobs. I knew I was talented. I knew I had what it took to be a chef. But because of how I was living my life, I was pissing all my employers off, and I was struggling at that point to hold down a job, because I was more often partying than I was working. So at that point, I stopped drinking altogether. I stopped using drugs altogether. I stopped smoking, and my introduction to fitness at that point was going to like a circuits class, like a local circuits class in was in like a church hall, not far from where I lived, and from there that progressed then, and once I got a kind of taste of how exercise would and could make me feel better. And obviously, I'd pulled alcohol out of my life, I'd pulled drugs out of my life, stopped smoking cigarettes. So I almost instantaneously had this like better feeling of myself. I was feeling more healthy, and my mental health improved drastically. From that point, like anything that kind of obsessive people do, the circuits soon became not enough, and I was looking for the next thing, and I ended up in a CrossFit gym in Belfast, around about 10 years ago, and did CrossFit for almost 2 years before I left for Asia, and just really enjoyed it. It was the first time I'd ever been near an Olympic bar. It was the first time I'd ever done a proper squat, a proper deadlift. It was my first introduction to heavy weights, and at that point I was just this skinny kind of waif of a lad. I was like 63 kilos, I think, when I turned up for my first CrossFit class. So I was a real tiny guy. I was skinny, but I really enjoyed it, and that was my kind of introduction in part to lifting weights, to Olympic lifting, and getting really focused on fitness.
And that's a really awesome turnaround, that thing, like you hitting that lower point in the rehab, and then like finding that, like finding this solution in fitness. That's quite, yeah, it's quite great. That's awesome. And like when you started doing CrossFit and when you started doing the circuits, were there points where you thought, and were you afraid of relapsing again?
No, I think once I got past that like 6-month window of not drinking, not using drugs, once I got past that 6-month window, that fear kind of left me. And when I seen how quickly my life started to progress, and how much easier life became when I wasn't partying, and when I was using my spare time for productive things, my yeah, it never became a case of looking back to that lifestyle. Like it wasn't a case where I missed the lifestyle. I just the benefits of having a cleaner life just spoke for themselves.
Mm-hmm. And like from then you saw a lot of advantages in your professional life for sure, right? And in your personal life.
Yeah, it's interesting that from a professional point of view, when you look at when you're in kitchens and you're in that environment, you're drinking heavily. It seems like everybody around you is drinking heavily, and it's not until you remove yourself from that lifestyle you realize, well, not everybody is. And from what I could gather when I started cleaning up my lifestyle, the guys who were being really successful were the ones who weren't out partying, and the guys who were going on to do good things were the guys who were looking after themselves physically, the guys who were going home and reading books and getting enough sleep. And I still speak to chefs today, like, and when I say grown up, I mean grown up chefs who go home at night and can't sleep until 3 a.m, because they're so wired from the anxiety of service, and they've drank so much coffee that day that they need 3 or 4 hours after service to wind down before they go to sleep. Like, I come home in the evenings, I have a shower, I'm out cold 4 minutes after getting out of the shower. It's like I've almost conditioned my body to just go straight to sleep. So I can't understand why anybody would want to have 5 hours sleep and then be back on a breakfast shift, because they'd sooner sit watching TV while they wind down. So yeah, I still see people today who I imagine should know better, not connecting the dots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most people don't ever connect the dots, right?
No,
most chefs.
I spend a lot of time, and I'm quite vocal about the benefits of eating properly, of getting enough sleep. Like, the big thing that I see in kitchens today, which probably is a whole lot more tame than some of the stuff I would have seen in the past, is like kids drinking energy drinks, like 5 and 6 cans of energy drinks in a day. And I'm like, what are you doing to your liver? What are you doing to your kidneys? Like, how do you sleep at night? Like, stop drinking that shit. And they look at me like I'm an idiot. But it blows my mind that they're willing to pump that much caffeine into their system and then can't understand why they can't get to sleep at night when they go home.
Yeah, like, it's insane. That's insane. But yeah, there should be like more awareness of that overall, like in the industry. Like, especially these people starting out, they need to know from the beginning, hey man, that's not the right way. And I think it culturally passes from one generation of chefs to the other. Probably they see like the older guys doing that, like on drugs, drinking like lots of caffeinated drinks and like grinding. And it's not like they need better role models. I think they should spread the awareness.
100%.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the industry overall, more recently in the last couple of years, there's obviously been a huge benefit in terms of how much television time profile chefs are getting, and that quite a few of those profile chefs are using that time to discuss the impacts of the industry on the staff, and looking towards better educating young people coming into the industry, because they understand that if the industry doesn't get better at this, then there's going to be no industry at some point. Because why would anybody want to let their 18-year-old son or daughter go work in an industry that's caving in on itself and has massive links to mental health issues and dependency issues and everything else that goes with it. So I think the industry is aware that it needs to change, and some of the people who are influential are trying to do that.
Yeah, man. Hopefully things will improve, and those like influential people will be able to reach out to these youngsters. Yeah. Nowadays, Matt, how do you fit exercise into your schedule? I understand that it's no longer 16 hours, but you have like a set routine.
Yeah, I've it's interesting. My journey has progressed in lots of different ways, and I've gone from kind of training 5-6 days a week quite heavily to periods where I got quite a few bad injuries 4 or 5 years ago that knocked me out of my Olympic weightlifting routine. And when I came back from those injuries, I put on quite a lot of weight. My body fat percentage had shot up, and I was feeling pretty down about my body composition at that time. And when I was Olympic lifting, and I just didn't focus on body composition, as long as I hit my 69 kilo limit for competition, it didn't bother me if I had a six pack or not. But when I came back from the injuries, body composition was something that interested me, and I went and met a coach in Dublin about 4 or 5 years ago, and spoke to him about him getting me back in shape so that I could start Olympic lifting again. And the plan was to get me back to 69 kilos, see how lean and strong I could get at 69 kilos, and then I would start Olympic lifting again. I think interestingly during that time they changed the weight limits in Olympic lifting as well, but I had this figure in my head I needed to go back to 69 kilos. So during the course of that journey, I really got sucked into the aesthetic aspect of training. And when, for the 4 years, 5 years previous, all I'd cared about was how heavy a snatch I could get, how heavy a clean and jerk I could get. Could I make it to the next British Nationals? That was all I was focused on from a training perspective. It was all about strength and power. And then really unexpectedly, I found myself in a position where I was in a regular gym, lifting weights for aesthetics and eating for aesthetics. And while that surprised me, the better I got at it, the more obsessive I became about it. And I really focused on that for about 2 years. Similar to the program you said yourself, I would get as lean as possible as I could between kind of December and April, May, maintain through the summer, and then kind of August, September through December would be about trying to put some weight on. And I was relatively successful in that. Like I said, when I started this fitness journey, I was 63 kilos, and despite being so lean, I had no visible six pack. I was just skinny. And I would say at a point then I was probably 74 kilos with visible abs. So I did manage to put on quite a bit of weight, probably through Olympic lifting initially without realizing it. And then when I was focusing on my aesthetic. So that period of my life lasted about 2 years, and then I got married, and and realistically, the amount of time spent doing cardio, the amount of time spent in the gym, the amount of time spent prepping food, making sure my calories were correct, it was just, yeah, that was fine when I was a single man and I didn't have any responsibilities. But the minute I had a wife and a stepdaughter to look after, and a responsibility to be around them enough, that wasn't really feasible. And at that point, what I did was I just kind of kept going to the gym, but I took out the focus on kind of obsessive calorie counting, and probably took my foot off the gas with cardio as well. At that point, like when I was trying to maintain body weight, I would have done like 5, sometimes 6 cardio sessions a week on top of weight training. And once I got married, I started to pull that out a little bit and kind of just switch it up. So more than anything, for like the last 2 years, all I was doing was really just going to the gym just to keep my kind of mental health in check and make sure my anxiety levels were normal, and that I wasn't over stressing and worrying. And I find that at times when I get worried, or times when I do have anxiety, to get into the gym for an hour just helps level all that stuff for me. So but recently I've had a real focus on managing my time better so that I can be more effective with my training. And I just found turning up to the gym and training for 45 minutes or an hour 4 or 5 times a week, while it keeps me in shape and it keeps my head in the right place, it's not necessarily all that effective. And just a few weeks back, I joined one of the local CrossFit gyms, and I've kind of gone full circle a little bit just to just to kind of maximize the amount of time or the amount of effort that I put in when I'm in the gym. So I'm conscious those guys can put me in a position where I can go in, I can smash out a 45-minute workout. I can leave having lifted some heavy weights, having done a little bit of cardio and conditioning, and get on with my day. So I suppose back to your original question. Sorry, I'm Irish. We tell long stories. Back to your original question. How I manage my time now in terms of getting to the gym. I know I have a 1 hour session 4 or 5 times a week. And what I do is on the days when I've got an early start, I get up an hour early and I go to the gym either 6:30 or 7:30. And on the days when I have a day off, I'll either train at lunchtime or early evening. So I essentially fit in 3 early mornings into my week where I know I need to be in bed in good time. I know I have to have my gym gear ready on the step for when I wake up. I know I have to have my alarm set, and I know I just have to drag my ass out of bed even when I don't want to. And that's been a big thing for me is I've always had the freedom to just go to the gym either before or after work. And it didn't matter how long I was working because I was a single man. And now that I'm married, I have to make that time. And it's probably, if I had to give some advice to anybody trying to start a fitness journey, my advice is make the time. Like I train at a gym that's right beside my workplace, so I don't have an excuse in terms of like having to travel across the city to get to the gym. It's literally it's walking distance to the restaurant. And if you make those right choices, I think making the time is quite easy. But it's making the time for yourself. That's, for me, that's the secret.
Mm-hmm. So like, what would you say to someone like that's in the position that you were when you were struggling with all those things? What's the first step for them to start out? You said making the time would be like the secret would be making the time to do it. But what would be the first step for someone which is like starting out and wants like to start getting their life right?
From a fitness perspective, my advice is find a gym that you're comfortable in and somebody to train with. And from a lifestyle perspective, while I don't think everybody will have the problems that I had in terms of like alcohol and drugs, what I do recommend is just stop drinking for a few months, right? And even if it's not an issue in your life, pull it out of your diet for a few months to see the difference. And even just from a body composition point of view, when you pull alcohol out of your diet, the difference is insane and fast acting. Like I've watched people who I've helped in work or in the industry start to go to the gym or start to introduce walking into their routine or whatever. Sometimes some really, really simple things depending on where that person's at. But when I can manage to convince somebody to stop drinking for 30 days, the differences they see are immeasurable. And yeah, that would probably be my second piece of advice. Stop drinking for 30 days, see how it feels. Because it impacts on your body way more than people give it credit for.
And that will for sure give them momentum. Like if you stop for 30 days, you'll feel like so good that you're like, I need to continue with this because the benefits are awesome.
Just even like that. My wife, a while back, she stopped drinking for 30 days. and she wasn't dieting, she wasn't training particularly difficultly. She was just doing her regular routine, but she stopped drinking for 30 days, and she lost like 3-4 inches around her waist just from not drinking. It definitely makes a massive impact, and yeah, I know that for people in the industry, it's almost like a go-to stress reliever, and I still see it to this day. Like people can't wait to get their shift finished so they can have a beer or have a glass of gin or a glass of wine before they head home, to take the edge off the day, and knowing that you don't need to, and knowing that when you do enjoy a glass of wine, that it's for the enjoyment of it rather than to take the edge off a day. That's a massive thing.
Awesome, man. Matt, this was already, very helpful. I really appreciate your time coming here and sharing your story. Really awesome story, actually. Even more awesome than I was expecting. That was a good one. I'm sure everyone is going to benefit from your advice, and hopefully you'll inspire some people with this story. If someone wants to reach out to you for advice, either in fitness or maybe in career as well, how can they find you online?
I have an Instagram. Now that you've asked me that question, I don't know what the tag is. But I will get
I will share in the description anyway.
Yeah, I think yeah, I'll send you those details along if you want to stick them on onto the links or whatever. Yeah, I've got an Instagram there. Anybody can add me on Instagram if they've got any questions or yeah, I'm always happy to give people some direction, and if I can help one person with my journey, then that makes my journey that bit better.
Awesome, man. Appreciate that. For the hospitality fitness community, guys, first, stop drinking. Second, thanks for watching. And if you like this video, smash that like button for me and Matt, and I will see you guys on the flip side. All right, man. Take care. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for listening. And if you found this content valuable, you can find additional help for free by joining the hospitality fitness community on Facebook at thehotelfit.com or facebook.com/hospitality fitness community. There's a ton of cool stuff happening, as well as a massive amount of free resources and information. So join us at the hospitality fitness community.